Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Karen A, and this is the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast, where we get together intelligent agent spearheads of God's everlasting creation. Reco12 is a website, reco12.com, that is a repository of recovery resources for people suffering from all addictions and all afflictions. You'll find shares, recordings there from alcoholics, narcotics users, recovered gamblers, compulsive overeaters, anorexics, bulimics, sex addicts, love addicts, codependents, hoarders, clutterers, and you could feel free to add more to the list. We're sure that if you browse through our recordings, you could find someone you relate to, and if you are recovered and have your own recovery story to share, whatever your addiction or affliction, and you are living in the sunlight of the Spirit, we would love to have you speak here. I will put my number in the chat so you could reach out to me. We're always looking for new speakers, new recovered fellows, because your story just might be the thing that someone else relates to. What we're going to do here today, we have Alessia here with us, sharing our very special topic, which she will shortly introduce. Alessia will be speaking for about 30 minutes. We could give you time, or not too strict, at which point you all will be invited to ask Q&A. Alessia, people can either unmute and ask those live, or if they're shy or want to protect their anonymity, they could do so in the chat, and you could either check the chat or I could read them out to you, whatever your pleasure. If anyone would like to contribute a seventh tradition, we do have costs to maintain this website, to get the recordings on Reco12.com. I'll also mention, by the way, there that we have a lot of Noodle It Out with Nikki's and a big book roundtables with Justin B., our founder and recovered leader here. He'd probably say he's a servant. So make sure to check that out, Reco12.com, and for your seventh tradition, Reco12.com/support. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Alessia to introduce her topic and share with us. Before you do that, Alessia, maybe put your number in the chat in case people want to reach out to you and be in touch. On a side note, I just want to tell you all that I'm really proud I'm here, because I just started my master's degree in social work while working, and I started field work, and that's thanks to this program, recovering physically and mentally as we cover spiritually, and hoping and praying that higher power will continue to show me and all my fellows, all of you, the way for the next great thing, to be of service to higher power and to our fellows. Alessia, welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen, for the introduction. Happy to be here. And yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. I have been listening to Reco12 for the last few months, and it came unexpectedly. I had a lot of fear being here, but I learned in this program that I shouldn't shy away from any situation in which I can be useful and share my story. Sharing my story may be of help of some people who is still suffering. So yeah, my topic is from validation to experiencing life with God. Because validation is really what brought me to my knees and brought me to this program. I've been around the rooms for 4 years, but I'm truly recovered since 1 year and a few months, so 3 months, this month actually. And I am a sex and love addict and a codependent. I worked the steps for both of my addictions. What brought me to the rooms is my endless need of attention, validation, and my control and perfectionism. So it's really in the program I've learned in this past 1 year and 3 months to experience life again. It's like I'm learning to walk again with God, because I had no idea that what I was doing was killing me. And I came into the rooms the first time 4 years ago. during COVID because of a very, very disaster relationship that I was into. And it took me 4 years to truly work the steps because I was going to the meetings. I wasn't willing to do the work because my addiction and my validation was still working. Or at least that's what I thought. So I had to be really beaten into a state of reasonableness and smashing the delusion that I'm like other people before I was willing to do the work. So what I come from, basically, I was born with the idea that I'm not good enough. So I spent my life showing and proving myself and others that I was good enough. And it was in many different areas of my life. My drug of choice is men. And I've always been I've always been living in my fantasies, let's say, as from a very young age. Being liked and chosen by men was the most important thing of my life. I was obsessed, and I had this really endless need of validation, and it developed throughout the years, and it was showing up in many different areas of my life. Another thing. I was born, as the book says, restless, irritable, and discontented. And I could never, ever understand why. I was never okay with being where I was. I was always with my fantasies, fantasizing about the life that I could have, fantasizing about leaving my family, leaving my country, leaving everything. I always wanted to run away for some reason. And but at the same time, I was never okay with the things that I was doing. I took my first geographical when I was 18, thinking that this would fix my problems. And the problem was that I brought myself in every situation that I was. And I escaped from the chaos. I came from a quite chaotic family situation, but that was actually what was giving me the validation also, to be able to take care of my family, to be able to, fix and manage there. That was giving me the sense of feeling important. That was the place that I was feeling important, even though it was very chaotic situation. That was my comfort zone. And all the rest outside my family has always been very scary for me. I was going around life with a lot of fear, unable to show up to the situations where I had to show up, and always avoiding, things that were not comfortable for me, always trying to fix and manage life to suit myself so that I could be okay. So that would mean that I would only be around certain people that I thought it would be good to be around. I would always be attracted to very sick people usually, or very chaotic situations. And that was the space that I was comfortable with. And my codependency, my sex and love addiction, so I came into the program because my sex and love addiction and my fantasy addiction was the way that I would get ease and comfort, and that would give me a fix for the way that I was always feeling. So I constantly needed to have someone tell me how beautiful I am, how important I am. To take care of someone's life was something that I really used during my addiction, and which brought me to very, very dangerous situation in the first place, and very and feeling exhausted, feeling drained, and feeling miserable all the time. But I couldn't stop, and I came into the program. And I wasn't able to stop getting basically being with myself and just being alone. I always needed some kind of intrigue. I always needed attention, validation from sometimes more than one person, because that would and that would never be enough. So I started I came into the program because I got into a relationship with a man who was quite violent, but I was violent too in a way, in my communication, in the way I was treating him, feeling superior all the time, and making someone feel miserable all the time because he wasn't doing the things that I wanted. And then after that, I decided I didn't want to have a relationship anymore. So I was trying to be by myself, but I found I couldn't. And my inbox when I came to the program was full of messages from people, that I was using for to fix these feelings that I had in me, or not to feel those feelings. And to feed my endless need of attention, validation. And it was a very small life, to be honest. My need for validation was showing up in other situations in my life, mostly at work, and with my friends, trying to be very, very careful in never upsetting anyone, in doing the things perfectly and taking on commitments, people pleasing a lot, saying yes when I would mean no to everything, or taking on commitments because I thought, I was the only person in my head that could do those things. And that really drained me. And I came into the point where my validation was killing me, in the sense that I couldn't function. I would spend hours and hours obsessing just in my head about very simple situations, just because I didn't want to upset people, or just because I wanted to get, the recognition in a way at work, or like with my friends, or in like with my partners. And and I thought always, it's other people's fault because everybody has so many expectations of me, but it wasn't true, because it was me that I needed to have that validation, that I needed to things to be in a certain way, because otherwise I wouldn't be okay. And then when I was okay, it was never enough. And so I needed to create another situation to get the same validation. So that brought me to the point when I couldn't function anymore, and I was unable to function at work. At some point, I had to take some time off because I couldn't write an email. I didn't know where to start. I was completely frozen. I was in this state where everything became too much, and I couldn't stop.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Reco12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Finding my ease and comfort from men at the same time. So my life last year, 2 years ago, was very, very small. All that I was doing was, getting out of the weekend, getting drunk, because alcohol was also some of the things that I used to numb. Drugs as well. But the core of everything I really see, or at least what brought me to the program, was my sex and love addiction. I thought at the beginning that alcohol and drugs were not a problem. But I soon realized that I have a tendency for binging in this as well. So that was also part of my story. I do relate with other addictions as well. At some point, I had so many things that I didn't know what to address first. And and when I couldn't function anymore, that's where I found a big book sponsor. And I came into this program without, the hope that this would work for me, because I was 4 years in the room and in CoDA, and I was looking at other people recovering, and I couldn't understand why I wouldn't recover. We were working the steps in a very slow way, and I have no opinion in that. It's just that for me, that was not the right time, maybe, or the right thing that worked. I was a chronic. And for me, without this conscious contact with God, I would, close my laptop, go out of the meeting, and do the same thing over and over again. So I was very, very baffled, and I thought that I was recovered at some time. But then I got into yet another situation with a man that really, really destroyed me. And I couldn't understand why it was, again, the same thing. And I couldn't stay away from him. I just couldn't. So I came into the program without the ability to not text this person that I didn't want to text. I was seeing that I had a problem, but I couldn't stop. So I worked the steps in a very quick way. So in 15 days, I was put in the solution. And I started building my relationship with God. And for the first time, so the obsession was removed quite soon, actually. And that was amazing because, my inbox, as I said, was filled with these messages of people that I was using in a way or another to feel better about myself, and I couldn't stay away from. And after I worked the steps, something happened, and God just fixed everything. I started to see, I had a psychic change. I saw that the common denominator of all of these relationships was me. That blaming others, wouldn't fix my problems. That changing my outside circumstances the way I thought it would suit me wouldn't fix my problem. And that I was really, like the big book says, like the actor that want to fix the whole show and want to fix the ballet and the lights and everything. So that was the way I was going around. And at the same time, I was trying to fix myself also, because I thought, as the actor, that I had like a small camera following me around everywhere. So anytime that I would make a mistake, it would have, like, everybody would see that in my head, it would be a big, a catastrophe, and everybody would judge me. So that was the ideas, the old ideas that I had, and they still come up sometimes. But now I live in the solution. Now I know that my head is what is causing the problem, and I had to see. And I had to see how God worked in my life to be able to trust. It's like, as any relationship, we need to get to know the person and then be able to trust. And with God, it's the very first relationship, I think, that I learned how to build, how to trust little by little. And I took a lot of actions. So what really saved me was, learning about the problem, but then especially jumping into this program of action and keep on taking those actions every day. And it was, in the first week, my obsession with men was removed. I still had to work the steps for my codependency sometime later, a few months later, because I would see that, God was showing me that my need for validation and attention was also coming from different things. Like work was another part, my friends, or like my willing to, so my idea that everybody was judging me, and therefore I needed to prove to everybody that I was worth it, was another thing. Like my validation doesn't discriminate anyone. It could be a person on the street looking at me in a wrong way, and my head would already start running. And that was not a way to live. So I had to go to God with all of these things. And God showed me day by day that I'm gonna be okay. That these things, that doesn't matter what happens, that I can take those actions and I'm gonna be okay. And the first actions that I took, were very scary amends that I was very scared to take. There was a situation where I was, very afraid that I would end up in prison or sued because there was something that I did in my addiction that was very dishonest and very, very scared, and that could get me into trouble. And, I remember my sponsor asking me, if you cannot trust God, who can you trust? So I took the action, and God kind of took care of everything else. And the feeling of freedom that I had, this was one of my first amends actually. And the feeling of freedom that I had, afterwards, and that I have every time that I take an action that I'm scared of, but I pray God to help me. It's something that is nothing that I've ever proved, that I've ever experienced. So, and I'm experiencing life with God because I am able to show up for my life right now. And before, it's not that I was not showing up for other situations, but I was really living a small life. So it was about work, it was about sex and love addiction. That's it. I would travel to my family sometimes. Right now I'm doing so many things that I haven't done before. And it was hard, the first times, the first months, especially in my recovery, to be in social situations without drinking, for example. That would give me the confidence that I needed to be the person that I thought I would have to be in my head. Without that, I had just a lot of social anxiety, and I was shaking the first times, and I was thinking, worrying about, it was all about myself. It was like, was in my head thinking, what am I going to say to look in this way? What am I going to do? And what is this person going to think of me? And this and that. And that was like just making me crazy. That was my codependency, just wanting to be the perfect person around everyone, the perfectionism, the validation. And slowly, I had to be in those situations. I have to make my 10 steps and ask for God help a few people that struggle with the same things. And then this is, and this was removed. I'm able right now to be in any situations. And, I have sometimes still my thoughts coming up, but I can live, I can be myself. And I started to do things, like going on a hike, even things that I would have never done before, because I was always only willing to go to those situations where I could get some validation, or where there was alcohol, or where there were men. So that was not something that I would have done, because it would be boring or so. Or I started to, I had a lot of hobbies in the past, which I left completely in the last, I would say, 4 years. I started doing those again, and I left those hobbies because I was afraid of what people thought of me, even. And right now, I am able, to, it sounds like something small, but to me, just being able, to be in a dance class and performing and all of these things, it's something that was a mountain to climb for me. And I'm able to do all of these things because I'm not thinking anymore, how am I going to look in a certain situation, but how can I be helpful? What can I give to the situations? What are, even right now I'm looking for jobs, and before it was all about how can I find the perfect job that is going to suit me and my life in a perfect way. And right now, the perspective that I have is how can I be spiritual in my job? How can I find a job, where I can still work my program, and what are my talents that God gave me and which I can use to be of service? These are not thoughts that were going on in my mind before, because the job was also something where I would get my validation, and I would need a certain status, and I would need a certain a certain salary to feel important, and right now it's actually okay whatever I'm doing as long as it's as I can be of service to God and use those things that God gave me to be helpful to someone. And also in the job search, something that would really crush me in the past was the rejections, or like even in my sex and love addiction, being rejected, that would mean that I am nothing. If someone rejects me, is complete destruction of myself, and I would mean nothing anymore. So that was one of my old ideas. Right now, I just understand that God is protecting me when I'm getting any rejection. That those things that are not supposed to be in my life are not in my life because of God's will. And there are some situations, that God is putting me in my life, which sometimes I think I'm not good enough. But through recovery, I've been learning to show up really, and to see that with God I can do anything, and I'm never alone doing these things. It's never about me. I was feeling very lonely, and like everything was on my shoulder before coming to this program. And now I feel like I always have God that like is with me and trying to do things together. And I'm able to do so much more with God. And I've been able
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Reco12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Reco12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, sometimes to show up to very scary, interviews or situations, or things that I wouldn't think I would fit. I would be fit is all. Always need to see where my head is telling me lies and what is the truth. And when I work my program, usually I'm able to do the things that I was avoiding. So the avoidance was also actually a big part of my addiction before. What else? Then something that really that really gave me the opportunity. I see the program like gym, let's say, where I could train this spiritual muscle and then apply it to my whole life. I started, sponsoring very early, because that was my, what was my sponsor when she got me through the steps. Actually, she was recovered 2 weeks, my old sponsor, and that is amazing because she passed me, the message that it doesn't matter how many days I have of recovery, I can still be helpful to someone, and the steps worked. So for anyone who is out there and thinking, I'm not good enough to sponsor, I don't have enough recovery or so, that's another lie that our heads are telling us. Because if someone is really desperate, if someone needs this program, they're gonna do that. And this is the part of the program where I really learned that it's never about me, that is that I'm just a vessel in this world to carry God's message and to carry out the work that God puts in my way. And this has allowed me, to sponsor people quite early and to be helpful to some people in the program, and also, changing my perspective and seeing myself also as part of God's word has also helped me to take care of my health. And my eating habits were also always messed up, because the most important thing for me before, it was getting that validation. So I was forgetting a lot to take care of my health. I wouldn't go to doctors. I wouldn't, if I was sick, I would try to just self-medicate with something and go on and push through. Because nothing was more important than, getting that validation from work or men or like the people around me, which I used as bottles, really. And when I started seeing, that I'm just renting this body, this is not, mine, it's not my property. So I started treating my body with respect. And I started taking care also of my health, my like eating, sleeping habits, all of these things, just feeling part of life, feeling part of the word, and taking care of God's body, instead of, pushing through and to get whatever I think I need in that moment, always pausing and asking God, what is it that I need? And then another thing that I think it's important sharing is that I was always, and I touched on it before, I was always afraid to make mistakes. And even in my recovery, I had the tendency at some points to work program perfectly, like to approach it as a workaholic, maybe like doing too much. I thought that if I would do more, then I would get more recovery, or I thought there was a perfect way to work program. And then God showed me, anytime that I did that, I was brought on my knees again. And God showed me that it's about progress and not perfection. That as long as I live along spiritual lines, it's gonna be fine, and I don't need to be perfect, and I do make mistakes. I know what to do when I make a mistake. I leave the outcome to God. I do my best, to work my program, but there was a time, especially the beginning of my recovery, where I confused the two things, because of my tendency to do this to get something. This is not about getting. This is about being and becoming. And right now I feel that it's been a roller coaster this first year of recovery, and it's been really painful at times. But I would never ever exchange one day of this life with the one day of the life that I was living before, because it was a very small life, and I wasn't really part of anything, and it was very miserable. And right now I'm so grateful. And there are moments where I'm not okay, and there have been moments when I was in a lot of pain. But I have a solution now. I know that I can go to God with these things, with anything, that God is going to accept me no matter what. It's the only relationship, in my life where I can be myself, and God is going to accept me. And when there are, certain actions that I need to do, or certain things that I can do better, I know that God is going to show me. And but I don't go into that into that state of mind where I'm pushing down myself for not being perfect, and I'm going into self-hate or blame or shame and all of these things. And it's been amazing. And it's been amazing to remember this, because I don't spend hours and hours, in my head wishing that I was someone else, wishing that I was perfect. I have everything I need right now. God is going to give me everything that I need. I don't need to fix myself anymore. And yeah, and I have a new director, a new employer, a new everything, a new partner. So I think that's what I'm about to share. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Wow, Alessia, you have a new director, and you are at perfect peace with God and the universe. You have everything you need right now, and everyone on the line, so do you, and so do I. Have everything I need, everything I need. And all I need is my higher power and to take the next right step. Have him guide me to take the next right thought or action. That's all we really need. That is just, your story is unbelievable. You're so eloquent. Here, I'll validate you. You're beautiful. You're eloquent. It's a beautiful story of recovery and hope for us codependents, us blackout codependents. I, for one, certainly relate. Tell me about your rock bottom. I want to hear about the rock bottom. What was it? You mentioned a few times that you kind of were brought to your knees. Can you?
Oh, you got muted.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your gift of desperation, the rock bottom? That's what I want to hear.
Definitely. Thank you for the question. I think, to be honest, I had different rock bottoms. If I really related to Bill's story the first time, because I had to fall many times. I feel the first one was when I couldn't be around my family anymore, because they weren't behaving the way that I thought they would behave. So I took the first geographical because of that. I couldn't, I had no feelings whatsoever, no compassion whatsoever for my family. And I always thought of myself a very empathetic person. I had enough. I couldn't be around them. And that was very scary for me to be in that state. Another rock bottom was then when I was in this relationship with a man who was violent to me a few times, and I couldn't get out. That was actually what brought me to CoDA the first time. And I kept on coming back for more, in this relationship. Then eventually I was able to leave that relationship. But I kept on doing the same thing in other relationships or just with other men. Just because I wasn't in a relationship, it didn't mean that I wasn't around men that I was scared of. That was a big part, actually, to search, to go and look for someone like that, so that I could recreate that environment where I would be comfortable. And I just
I'm actually going to pause you here.
I'm so sorry.
Can I pause you here, because you just said something really, really, really important that
I'm really sorry, but I couldn't
Hello,
hear.
can you hear me?
It was cut, I think, the connection. The connection was a bit...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's better.
I wanted to hear what Alessia said, because she said a very important principle here about the disease being our thinking. Her problem wasn't men. It wasn't that she wanted validation, because what happened? When she got rid of the guy, there's another guy. All of a sudden in the workplace, she needs everyone to compliment her, or her boss, or whatever. If it wasn't her friend, in friendships, being the center of attention, getting a round of applause, as Bill says in the big book, I had arrived. By the way, Alessia, that's what brought me here too, because that's how the addict mind goes. It says, I'll get a guy. And then the guy, in her case, he hit her. In my case, he left me, dumped me, left me high and dry. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm really smart. I'll get a good job, right? Because I could do that. And then wouldn't you know it, the boss is verbally abusive. You get this, right?
Yeah.
And we are the same, right? We're all the same. Different stories, different people. We might, the big book said job, and then, whoa, verbally abusive and ignores me. Well, okay, then I'll do something else. Well, okay, well, that is just me and my kids. But then, my teenagers have issues and they're not nice to me. And there I am feeling abandoned and rejected again. And we continue, the known cycle of the spree, and then we act out, and then the guilt and remorse of the morning after. And we go around and around in this circle.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what variable you plug in, your boss, your friends, we go round and around in this circle, the vicious cycle, until we cut out of that and turn to higher power. We got to break the paradigm entirely. And that's the only place where we find relief. You want to talk about that, where after that another rock bottom and another rock bottom, and trying to do a geographic and getting out of the relationship, how you finally cut out of the vicious circle?
Hey Reco12 Spearheads, if our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Reco12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at reco12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Reco12 Spearhead.
Yes, actually, you said it very well. I was always looking outside, and that kept me in that vicious circle. And that was never enough, because people always behaved their way. It never went my way. And then I think, how did I get out? I think it was, I had to see really that the common denominator was me. That it didn't matter where I was going, or the jobs that I was having, or where I was searching for validation. I had the same things repeating. In dating, it was the same thing. In working, it was the same thing. And didn't matter what happened. I kept on ruminating about how other people treated me bad. And then I had to fully consider, when the first time that I worked the steps, it was very, very powerful, because I could see my part. I had a psychic change, and I saw that my expectations of myself and others were what caused the problem, that I was trying to control the whole show. And it didn't matter where I was, and even today in recovery, I see that it's never about the job. It's never about the external circumstances. It's my perspective that needs to change. It's me who has to see where I'm being dishonest, where I'm having expectations of things to be in a certain way, or where I'm putting myself in certain situations, to get something to, and being very dishonest. So right now, actually, I'm able to be around people that I wasn't able to be around anymore. I built, that relationship with my family. My family has not changed. They keep on behaving the way they always behaved. But I see them, as very sick people who I love, and they love me in the way, and they are in the world doing the best they can, just as anybody else. And, as long as I'm trying to fix and control, I'm not going to make it difficult for me and for others. And when I let go and I let God, things are changing, because I can be in those situations without fixing and controlling. So I had to really, and I think how I smashed my delusion was really that at certain point I was just by myself. I pushed all of the people away. And I changed so much of the external circumstances that it was just me and myself. And I could see that even by myself, things were not changing, that I was still miserable. And I was able, to be in that state where I would feel exhausted, because I was just, going out and creating the chaos, and then wondering why I feel miserable and why I'm exhausted. And I had to be, I think I was very close to a burnout, or maybe I was in a burnout where I couldn't function anymore, and I couldn't, I was so much in my head about what everything else was wrong, that I couldn't put myself down and write an email, or and I was forgetting things. And I was, once I remember I was also about to get hit from a car in the streets, because I was so much in my head about what my boss said. So there were a lot of rock bottoms, I think. And it was always the same thing, trying to change the person, trying to change my job, or the people around me. And what brought me to the program was also like me getting into yet another relationship where I thought, with another very sick person, just as me, and expecting him to behave in a way that he wasn't able to behave, and which he also said at the beginning, of the relationship. So that was really, really powerful, I think, to make me willing to do this for real. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. This is just so amazing. I want to open it up. Would anyone like to unmute themselves and share? Who wants to unmute themselves and share, or pop a question for Alessia into the chat? She's got a lot of experience with codependency and love addiction. I'm going to mute myself and let you guys talk.
I could share. I think I've done a step 10 with Alessia. I'm not sure, but you have very much the same accent as an Alessia that I did a step 10 when you if it's the same person in Thailand or Bali. So it was about a year ago. Just really related, like so much to your share, like the validation, and really what you said, you first got the validation from trying to fix your family, or for me, it was my mum. And I guess that's what I've continued to try to do, try to fix people. And just kind of filled in that piece of my story. Like that's probably where it started, when I was trying to fix my mum. And I didn't realize, see it as that I was getting validation from that. Like I hadn't actually seen that. But that's what I was getting. I thought I was better than her, and because she needed fixing. So thanks so much. It was such a beautiful share. Yeah, one of the best I've heard. It just really related to everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. I'm happy to see you here. Yes, it was me in the 10 steps. And actually, it's funny you say that. I think I had the same relationship with my mom as well. My mom is still, unfortunately, a very sick person. She's struggling with mental illness as well. And I was, and in my childhood and throughout my teenage years, I thought I was better than her, and I thought, she needed to behave a certain way. She wasn't doing it right, and I was supported, I think, also from my extended family that kind of reinforced this story, because I had my grandmother who was behaving the same way towards my mom. So imagine how harmful this has been to my mom, and that was also giving me, it was giving me a sense that I was important, or that I was always the person that would run to her whenever something was wrong, and it was only me, because my dad couldn't do that, my brother couldn't do that, she had nobody else. So I kind of built this special relationship with my mom, that where I was her everything, as long as she would behave the way I want to, because then I could be very mean and harmful to her when she wasn't. So I think that's also for me where it all started. I think I was born as a codependent, or I don't know if I became a codependent. It was in my very, very first years of life. So thank you for sharing that.
Hi, thank you so much, Alessia. It was such a joy and privilege to hear your beautiful story in recovery. Can you share a little bit on either or both of when you have tough resentments that are justifiable, so to speak, how you deal with them? We all know, how we're supposed to do it, just the process. And also for you, of really having it removed. And can you also share a little bit about like forgiving yourself when you have done things that are, you have done harms to people? Mm-hmm. Thanks. If you have.
Thank you so much. So it's about like what I do when I have a big resentment of the ones that I like. It's hard to let go, right?
The person's really done something wrong, so to speak. It's not just that you're being oversensitive, or so to speak. There's been a clear harm from them to you, or that kind of thing.
So definitely, I had tough resentments. I think the biggest one, where I see that harm was done to me as well. It was like in that relationship where the person was violent, that was a big one, and it was hard to let go. And I had to pray a lot about it. And every time I have such a big resentment, I say the resentment prayer, and then the one, on page, let me see the page, like the one at the end of the book, that I'm going to pray. Oh my God, no. Yes. So on page 552, where it says, I'm going to pray for 2 weeks that the person gets everything the joy, happiness, everything they need, and even more, that they get it. So this helps me a lot, even though sometimes I choke on the words, and sometimes it's just words, really. But the more I do that, the more something changes in me, and the more I see also my inventory. And it is true that I have been in very dangerous situations. I have been around people that were violent and raging and very scary. And but the thing is that I was coming in, that was also my part in that, from their side, I'm not ignoring what they did, and that's important also, but from the other side, what I can do is like looking at my inventory and seeing what I came in to that situation having unrealistic expectation of how the person could act and react. What I did, to the person, having unrealistic expectation on how they would take what I said, and just being in those situations with very unrealistic expectations, because I was living in a dreamland. So that was the inventory. And now I am able, I think, in recovery to recognize where my higher power is telling me to go, to leave a situation, and when I have to stay. And I do make mistakes sometimes, I still go into places where I wonder, why am I here? But so I think that's important, that, you know, I'm not trying to talk myself into forgetting that part. The past is not to be forgotten. But I have to see, like, what are the things, you know, that brought me to be in that situation. And my fantasy and my way of thinking. So I think in that sense, it then helps me to, like, I overcome some huge resentments. And then also you asked about forgiving myself when I'm not doing it right or like doing it perfectly. I think, yeah, I go to God with anything, like, you know, anytime that I have a shame or a self-pity, sometimes even in working program, you know, there have been times where I was trying to make an amends, but I couldn't get my feet to walk towards that person. And I was asking for, you know, I was asking God for strength, and I was trying, you know, but and then I kind of sometimes, especially in that situation of this amend, you know, I was going into this mindset, oh my God, I'm not, like, I'm a failure and blah blah blah. So before this cycle starts, I go to God with this shame, the guilt, the regret, whatever happens in my mind when I make a mistake. I know that God is gonna accept me with everything that I have, with all my shame, my regret, with my mistakes, and then it's going to show me how to move on from there. And I have been able, you know, to make an amend then afterwards, but sometimes I just need to accept God's time. I mean, all the time I have to accept God's time. I don't try to force it anymore. I don't try to, you know, be perfect anymore. And yeah, and that's, I hope it answers the question.
Thanks so much, Alessia.
Alessia, thank you.
Thank you. Oops, I think Karen is frozen.
I just want to say thank you so much.
This is such a powerful share about rock bottoms, about when we're resentful. We're almost always right. It tells us, you know, that we're dead right. Alessia, I'm going to ask you to please pray us out for the day.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you so much for being here and for your questions. And
Thank
for
you,
offering
everyone. Thank you
space.
so much, Alicia. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. All right, so I will say the step 3 prayer. God, I offer myself to thee, to be with me and to do
Hear me? I can't hear you on.
God, I offer myself to thee to build with me.
with me and to do with me as thou
And
wilt.
with me as thou will.
Relieve me
of the bondage of
self,
self,
that I
that
may
I may
better
better do thy will.
take
Take away my
difficulties,
difficulties, that
that
victory over them may bear witness to thou with help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Amen.